Okay, hello everybody and welcome. This is a 5-minute screen test. What I thought I would talk about today is going to be about autism spectrum disorder and the tendency for it to be misdiagnosed. I probably had maybe about 400 or 500 different cases, throughout my life in neuropsychology that has to go with getting an accurate diagnosis. People come to neuropsychologists to get an accurate diagnosis. They may have been assigned an anxiety, a depression, an unspecified neurodevelopmental disorder, or something, something similar. Even ADHD, that's one of the most common misdiagnoses for autism spectrum, because a lot of the times what you're seeing is that lack of productivity or difficulty in school, and we're not really looking at the sensory, the social, emotional, and other things. Usually during the course of a neuropsych evaluation or neuropsychological evaluation, there are elements of intellectual functioning. The diagnosis of autism has two specifiers. The first specifier is intellectual disability. Now, these are individuals who have autism spectrum disorder. They've met the diagnostic criteria, but they also have a intellectual disability. It used to be called mental retardation. We don't use that term anymore. It's kind of an antiquated or outdated term, but it means someone who has cognitive and adaptive limitations or an IQ below 70 or more. The interesting thing is that the DSM-5 looks at the severity of intellectual disability, not so much as IQ scores, but more about adaptive dysfunction. And adaptability or adaptive dysfunction has to go, it really focuses on how do we function in society. It's a functional assessment. Anything from buttoning a shirt to being able to change, our clothing alone autonomously. People with motor restrictions might not be able to put on their own clothes. Elderly individuals or people with fine motor difficulties wouldn't be able to button a shirt. Children might be able to physically brush their teeth, but they might not have the wherewithal to initiate that process without assistance. So there's a wide range of different adaptive functioning. Usually communication is one of them. Can you give and or receive directions or instructions? How long does it take you to complete a task communicatively? How long can you pay attention and listen to communication? You'll also have things like, we talked about motor functioning and the ability to ambulate. Can you go up and down stairs? Can you open a jar? Can you drive a motor vehicle? Can you ambulate up and down stairs? Do you need a wheelchair? Those types of things. Other aspects of adaptive functioning, also include the ability to access the community. When you're in the community and you have financial transactions that you have to make, how do you know that you're getting in or giving the right change? Can you get a job where you can actually do simple mathematics or count out money? Do you know how to address an envelope properly? Do you know how to put a return address on an envelope? Do you have the wherewithal to write the correct amount on the check to pay a certain bill? So adaptive functioning is a huge piece. But back to the original part, we talked about why is autism spectrum misdiagnosed. Usually early in the development, within the first 2, 3 to 4 years of dysfunction, you have a very different profile than someone who's 12, 15, or 20. A lot of the times we have individuals who are autism spectrum, but they were diagnosed with attention deficit disorder because their room was messy. They had impulsive behaviors, or what appeared to be impulsive. They had difficulty transitioning from one activity to the other. And it just looked like an attention problem when really what was going on, these children were very rigid. They would engage in stereotyped behaviors or motor movements. And when their environment changed or they had an unexpected change, they weren't necessarily impulsive, but they were rather melting down. So those meltdowns after the transitions, are also things that you see that you don't really see in ADHD. Although if you look at them, kind of telescopically, you can see, their work's not getting done. They have difficulty finishing tasks. They're not very efficient. But there's two different reasons why. The first might be an ADHD. They're not concentrating. They're procrastinating or they have executive dysfunction, whereas a lot of the times it's autism spectrum where they're having sensory overload, information overload, and the ability to finish tasks is not because they are not able to complete the task because of inattention, but it's rather because they cannot shift their attention from one task to another. So you have an issue with shifting attention rather than attentional capacity for autism and ADHD respectively.